Hello everyone, today we're going to talk about a truly amazing creature, the seahorse. The seahorse is easily recognizable, and anyone can spot it right away. However, many people might not know that this creature is actually a fish. Isn't that surprising? Moreover, despite its slow-moving appearance which seems harmless, the seahorse is actually an expert hunter with incredible skills. Its hunting movements are so fast that they are barely visible without high-speed cameras. Especially when it comes to seahorse reproduction, it can completely overturn all your preconceptions. How extraordinary are newborn baby seahorses after watching today's content you'll understand. The scientific name for the seahorse is hippocampus, derived from ancient Greek meaning sea monster horse. In Greek mythology, this term describes a mythical creature with a horse's head and a fish's tail. In European folklore, it was believed that the souls of sailors who perished at sea were escorted to the underworld by seahorses, allowing them to rest in peace. There is also a popular belief that in some superhero movies, seahorses serve as the mounts for an underwater kingdom, which is pretty impressive. This is how Western culture perceives the seahorse, when it comes to the Eastern culture that emphasizes dragon culture. Take a look at the seahorse. Doesn't it remind you of the legendary dragon? Therefore, in Chinese, the family to which the seahorse belongs is called the sea dragon family. Its relatives, those referred to as sea dragons, are very similar in both shape and appearance to dragons. In Japan, things get even more interesting. In Japanese, it is called the illegitimate child of a dragon, meaning exactly that. Does this imply it has half dragon blood? That's quite an intriguing idea. One wonders which dragon fathered its offspring. Moreover, the Japanese name isn't just a nickname or colloquial term. In biological taxonomy, they officially call it the descendants of the dragon's child subfamily. The name is taken very seriously. In summary, whether in Eastern or Western cultures, simply by appearance, seahorses are already shrouded in mystery. But let's get back to reality. What about the seahorse itself? The contrast is quite stark. First off, its size is fit for riding. There are approximately 50 species of seahorses in the ocean. The largest is the pot-bellied seahorse, which only grows up to 35 centimeters, while the smallest is the Satomi's pygmy seahorse, which stops growing at just 1.4 centimeters. Who could ride it? It's barely enough for a glance. Moreover, its size is the only issue. Its swimming speed is also quite peculiar. As a fish, seahorses have mostly lost their various fins, leaving only a small dorsal fin on their back. Swimming with this fin, how should I put it? It is like standing on a skateboard and trying to accelerate by frantically waving a fan. So, the Guinness World Record for the slowest swimming fish goes without a doubt to the seahorse family. A type of seahorse called the dwarf seahorse is particularly slow. Did you know? The swimming speed of seahorses, only 1.5 meters per hr. This data makes one wonder if there was an error in measurement. Such a slow creature, if it's just being laughed at. That is one thing, but if you are still skeptical, are seahorses really fish? Molecular biologists have the definitive proof from genetic sequencing results. Seahorses are actually more closely related to tuna than salmon and tuna are to each other. Truly fitting the old saying, don't judge a fish by its appearance, right? So, in the long evolutionary history, what major events led to this transformation of an otherwise normal fish into such a unique creature? This mystery will be revealed later. In fact, seahorses still retain some characteristics of fish. For example, the small fan-like dorsal fin mentioned earlier is indeed quite useful despite its size. Additionally, they have a bunch of hidden little pectoral fins on their heads. It is said that these control direction while swimming. Moreover, seahorses have gills. This is where they most resemble other fish. Just opening and closing them really highlights their identity as fish. And then that's about it for fish characteristics. The scales on seahorses have all but disappeared. They wrap themselves in a series of hard, bony plates. In terms of defense, this works quite well too. Then, although seahorses do not have tail fins, they have a long tail. This is their treasure for survival. Just like monkeys use their tails to wrap around tree branches, seahorses use theirs to wrap around seaweed and corals to prevent being carried away by the currents. Usually, they don't move much, they just stay like this, living a life of waiting for food to come to them while guarding the seaweed. When it comes to the seahorse as not so great swimming skills, this tail is crucial. Another particularly interesting fact is that the seahorse's tail is round. Its cross-section is actually square. This is quite rare in the animal kingdom. A mechanical engineering team from Clemson University in the US has specifically studied this feature. They say that the structure of the seahorse's tail provides a remarkably strong grip. We can certainly take inspiration from this when designing industrial robots. Let's talk about the seahorse's eyes. They are particularly interesting. These eyeballs can rotate independently, just like a chameleon. With this ability, its field of vision becomes extra flexible, allowing it to see a much wider range. Also, the small mouth of the seahorse is quite different from that of ordinary fish. It has evolved into a straw shape. When feeding, it simply sucks really hard. This action draws both water and food into its mouth at once, making it very convenient. However, there is a catch. There is a size limit to what it can eat, as it can handle overly large items. Those who love bubble milk tea should be able to relate to this feeling. Speaking of this, some friends might ask, didn't you just say that seahorses are skilled hunters? How does that sound like they only drink through a straw? Well, it is not as simple as that. Let me explain further by talking about their favorite prey. When it comes to the menu for seahorses, there is one treasure they particularly love: plankton. Especially those tiny creatures known as copepods. These little guys have delicate antennae and sometimes resemble what we often call little ship captains. Despite their small size, these copepods play a crucial role in the marine food chain. They are usually only about 1 millimeter long but possess an incredible skill called the escape response. The moment there is any disturbance in the water, even if it's just something approaching with its mouth, they can sense it immediately and dart away at lightning speed. How fast is that? Scientists describe it as being able to swim 500 body lengths per second. To put this into perspective, imagine a human moving at about 900 meters per second. Quite an exaggeration, right? So those who want to eat them need some real skills. Just like the whale sharks and manta rays we mentioned earlier, which survive by filtering plankton from the water, their secret is having big mouths. No matter how fast these copepods try to escape, they can't get away from such a large opening. It is just like being caught in the palm of Buddha's hand. Additionally, we talked about flying fish. Flying fish also feed on plankton. Their special skill is having many mouths. A group of them come charging with their mouths open, and no matter how you dodge left or right, there is always a mouth waiting for you. If the front ones can catch you, the ones behind will ensure it. There's even a theory that says the swimming speed of flying fish groups and the distance between each other might be designed based on the escape response of plankton. When they dodge one mouth, they re-caught by another. Very clever. Now, let's talk about seahorses. They have small mouths and swim slowly. Can they still succeed? Well, not only do they succeed, but they almost guaranteed to catch their prey. Scientists have observed that when a seahorse strikes, its success rate is as high as 90%. This kill efficiency is even higher than the ocean's top predator, the great white shark, whose strike success rate is only around 55%. So what does the seahorse rely on? Two things: slow and fast. It's similar to how a tiger ambushes its prey. The more alert the prey, the slower you need to approach. Speaking of slow, that is the seahorse specialty. They can silently get very close to plankton without being detected, and then suddenly extend their tube, like snout, to suck up the plankton. It happens in an instant, incredibly fast. Moreover, the shape of the seahorse's head is very precise. When it strikes quickly, it hardly causes any disturbance in the water at all. The nearby seaweed doesn't even notice their companion being eaten. Next up would be them. Additionally, the seahorse's digestive system is quite unique. They don't have a stomach and cannot store food, so they need to eat constantly, things like small shrimp and plankton. They can consume over 3,000 in a day, with an extremely voracious appetite. However, when there is a shortage of food, seahorses are actually quite resilient. Because they move very little, their energy consumption is minimal, making them highly adaptable in terms of diet. Speaking of adaptability, the seahorse's reproductive flexibility can be considered unparalleled. During mating season, seahorses simply cannot contain themselves. First comes a courtship dance to establish their relationship. Many animals do this as an international custom, so it is not particularly rare. However, because seahorses are upright in posture, they give off a sense of graceful dancing which aligns with human aesthetics. Then, who is the male and who is the female? Many people might be surprised to learn that the one with the round belly, carrying what looks like a large pregnancy bump, is actually the male seahorse. The other is the female. The male's big belly is essentially a brood pouch, which is currently empty, as long as he opens up his brood pouch and opens his mouth. This means he is ready, waiting for the female to deposit her eggs inside. Next, they face each other, bellies touching. The female seahorse's ovipositor extends into the brood pouch, transferring the eggs to the male. This is considered a successful transfer. Of course, there are a few inexperienced newlywed couples that might have issues outside. However, most transfer processes go smoothly. After the transfer is complete, everything else falls under the care of the male seahorse, including fertilizing the eggs, providing oxygen to the embryos, supplying nutrients, expelling metabolic waste, and offering immunity, among other things. Even more astonishingly, scientists discovered prolactin in the brood pouch. This hormone stimulates milk production in mammals. Therefore, the male seahorse's role in raising offspring is both professional and heartfelt. After a few weeks, one day, the male seahorse will suddenly start convulsing, similar to human mothers, contractions before giving birth. With each contraction, hundreds or even thousands of baby seahorses are expelled, marking the completion of its task. These newborns emerge in their complete form similar to sharks. The eggs hatch inside the body, making them a mix between oviparous and viviparous, known as ovoviparity. Theoretically, this increases the survival rate of offspring. How high exactly? It is roughly around 1,000 to 100. At first glance, it may not seem impressive, but compared to fish that abandon their eggs after laying them, this is quite remarkable. All the hard work of the seahorse father certainly pays off. So, the next question is, in the animal kingdom, pregnancy and childbirth are usually handled by females. But how come with seahorses everything is reversed? Well, actually, as early as 2016, a research team from National University of Singapore found the answer within the genes of seahorses. At that time, they compared the genes of seahorses with other bony fish and discovered 5 key genes responsible for embryo incubation. In most fish species, these genes are actively expressed by females, but in seahorses, it is the males. Furthermore, scientists later figured out this arrangement is actually very reasonable. What does that mean? Think about it. Producing eggs consumes significantly more energy from females compared to males producing sperm. If females were also responsible for incubating the young, the energy expenditure would be even more unbalanced. Right. Therefore, the seahorse model is actually an evolutionary optimal solution. This sets a completely new precedent. Females prepare the eggs and hand them over directly to males for incubation. This way, they can rest and start preparing another batch of eggs. When the male releases the baby seahorses, the female has already prepared new eggs, at which point the male can continue incubating again. This balances energy consumption while saving time. In one mating cycle, it can happen multiple times, making it highly efficient, very, very efficient indeed. Moreover, this has led seahorses to develop a unique one incubation mechanism. Only their rhythm can be perfectly synchronized. This is the highly advanced seahorse model. Now, if we talk about some fish being able to walk upright, what does that mean? Think deeply. It might just apply to seahorses. In the entire ocean, perhaps only seahorses can truly be considered upright walkers. At this point, long-time viewers might object. Wait, didn't you mention that ribbonfish also like to stay upright in water? That famous image is quite memorable. Actually, although ribbonfish appear to stand upright, their body structure and swimming methods are quite different from seahorses. The unique body construction of seahorses allows them to walk upright just like humans. This is truly one of a kind in the entire ocean. Indeed, fish like ribbonfish and yellow ribbonfish do prefer to stay upright in water. However, there is a key difference: they can only swim forward along their body axis. Seahorses, on the other hand, swim completely perpendicular to their body axis. This is the essence of walking upright. Right. So, how did seahorses evolve from ordinary fish into the unique creatures they are today? This has become a key research topic for scientists. In fact, as early as 2009, a research team in Australia published a paper. They first identified a type of sea dragon that closely resembles seahorses, but swims horizontally. By comparing their genes, researchers confirmed their close relationship and estimated that they diverged from seahorses during the late Oligocene period, approximately 25 million years ago. This means that around 25 million years ago, some changes in the ocean might have occurred, leading to a genetic mutation for upright swimming that provided some competitive advantage, thus giving rise to the vertically swimming seahorse. Interestingly, the origin of seahorses coincides with the distribution area of these sea dragons in Australian waters. By examining what happened in this region during the late Neogene period, researchers can make some deductions. After analyzing geological structures, researchers found that tectonic movements created numerous shallow water areas at that time. These conditions were particularly suitable for seagrass growth, leading to a significant expansion of seagrass coverage in these waters. Moreover, shallower water increased wave impact and made swimming more difficult for fish, similar to how you would instinctively grab onto something stable when the subway shakes. If they could use their tails to grip seagrass, that would be fantastic. Later, having decided to cling onto the seagrass and lead a settled life, more advanced camouflage became particularly necessary. So how could they improve their disguise? By standing upright and aligning themselves with the direction of the seagrass. This gave them a competitive advantage. Therefore, the early seahorses evolved into an upright posture to adapt to life in the seagrass areas, while the sea dragons, which continued swimming horizontally, quietly moved to the algae reef zones. This is how these two species diverged. Moreover, since they embarked on this path of camouflage and ambush, the seahorses' ability to disguise themselves became increasingly powerful, especially for a type called the pygmy seahorse. It even mastered the essence of the ocean, master of disguise, the octopus. Scientists discovered that the pygmy seahorse only lives on a coral known as sea fans, and this coral comes in two typical colors, orange or purple. Similarly, the pygmy seahorses are either orange or purple. This piqued the scientists' interest. Were the pygmy seahorses choosing their coral homes based on color, or could they change their own color? Later, they were fortunate enough to collect a mating pair of pygmy seahorses from an orange-colored coral. Back in the lab, this orange pair successfully produced offspring. The newborns initially had no clear color preference, so researchers provided them with a purple coral environment. Guess what happened next? These young seahorses actually turned purple. Scientists discovered a special type of pigment cell in the skin of pygmy seahorses. These cells can change color according to their environment, similar to those found in an octopus, which is quite advanced with such diverse colors, and the ability to instantly change them. They are truly unmatched. In the Compendium of Materia Medica, it is mentioned that pregnant women about to give birth should consume some seahorse powder and hold a dried seahorse in their hand, which supposedly facilitates childbirth. Similarly, there is a similar custom in Japan. 7 Japanese people believe that carrying a dried seahorse can protect the pregnancy. This sounds quite novel. As for the reasoning behind it, it probably falls into the category of wishful thinking. Look at them, whether standing upright or with their big bellies, they actually resemble pregnant women about to give birth. This might be where ancient people got their inspiration from. However, if you ask about any medicinal effects, well, that is not certain. In my opinion, people are more focused on the good omen and auspicious signs, which likely weigh heavier in their minds than the actual medicinal benefits. But on the other hand, there is a small disappointment. It turns out that seahorses are actually pregnant by the males. This setup is somewhat awkward and strange to hear. Moreover, apart from their role in protecting pregnancies, people generally believe they can tonify the kidneys, treat asthma, combat fatigue, and even anti-aging. But whether these claims are true or not is hard to say. However, if these effects are real, rigorous scientific research is still required. It is essential to identify the effective components or develop alternative solutions. After all, catching wild seahorses is far from sustainable. Did you know? Approximately 20 million seahorses are dried each year and used for so-called medicinal purposes. In reality, only larger, sized and lighter, colored species meet the standards for medicinal use. For these types of seahorses, the survival pressure is quite significant. Indeed, fortunately, artificial breeding has already started in mainland China, Taiwan, mainland China and Japan as well. Hopefully this will help alleviate some of the pressure on wild seahorse populations. Additionally, about 1 million seahorses are caught annually for the aquarium trade, to be kept as ornamental fish. This is also a significant threat to them. However, you see, wild-caught seahorses aren't really suited for living in an aquarium. Because if they don't get used to eating live food, they can easily fall ill. On the other hand, those bred artificially would be better adapted to tank environments. After all, it is easier to find food there. So you see, for those of you who like keeping fish when buying them, it's best to avoid wild seahorses and opt for a safer choice. Of course, if we talk about the biggest threat facing seahorses, it remains an old but important issue, namely environmental pollution. They mostly live in areas with seagrass, coral reefs, or mangroves, and these habitats are under considerable pressure. Furthermore, seahorses have particularly high requirements for water quality,